Charlie Wissig is a designer and an art director with immense talent. I met him while working at Universal Studios Art and Design. He was just a guy with a great sense of humor who happened to produce fantastic artwork. So fantastic that I would walk away from a blank piece of paper at his desk, only to come back a short time later to find that he had created a pencil drawing of a concept that looked almost like a photograph. If you've ever been to the Disney Gallery at Downtown Disney and seen some of the paintings, you may have seen his artwork. His paintings there have sold for large sums of money. But today, we're going to hear from Charlie as he gives advice to the next generation of themed entertainment designers. If you're a next-gen student, you're going to want to hear this interview from Charlie Wissig, currently creative director at iTech Entertainment. And now, Themed Attraction proudly presents our conversation with the truly amazing Charlie Wissig on how to be successful in themed entertainment.
Well, immediately I'm going to say, actually we had a conversation earlier with one of the project managers here, and he said the real trick and goal is problem solving. Now, if you happen to be a graphic designer and you can solve problems as opposed to waiting for instructions, you're self-motivated, you've initiated design intent, you know what you're doing, that's a big plus. People that sit around saying, well, you didn't give me anything to do yet, they don't last very long. So being a problem solver, being multi-talented, and knowing at least the Adobe suite is a big part of it.
So Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator.
InDesign is a big one, and a lot of people are doing multimedia presentations online now, so it's not PowerPoint anymore. It's a matter of learning a certain amount of code as well, because a lot of things are done overseas in conference calls. But, I mean, there are people that say, I want to be a writer, but to be a specific nothing but show writer, I had a kid in here ask me, how do I become a writer? And I said, well, we have a writer at iTech. She's amazing. But she embarrasses me because she says, I think this ride could be like the ride that's in Switzerland, you know, the Little Dark. I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. She goes, oh, you haven't been to Switzerland? No. She's been to Europe, Switzerland, Asia, Japan, all to ride rides. That's all she does.
Really?
Live, eat, breathe, and ride rides. She knows all of them, how they work and what they've done, and the story behind them. She's fascinated by it. So in order to keep up with her, I had to go onto YouTube and start looking these damn rides up so I knew what she was talking about. But there are people, what you're competing with are people that live, eat, and breathe this stuff. Again, I was talking about Dave Edmonds. He can tell you the most trivial details about each and every ride, how they were put together, who designed them, who created them. And is that important to be a designer? In a lot of ways, yes and no, because a lot of times they'll relate to that. They'll say, let's do a design like so-and-so. So that background in history is only a part of it. Having the two-sided brain, you have to be mechanically minded as well as artistically minded to understand a lot of the workings of how something goes together, because you can design a lot of things that just are not practical. And then you have to have world knowledge. I was working on a project in Vietnam, and it was going to be themed whales, and they said, oh, whatever you think it needs to be. And I designed this great park and had brass whales, and then my boss came to me and says, do you realize that the going rate for a theme park ticket in Vietnam is $6? Because what you're designing, they can't afford that. They'll never afford to recoup that. So everything I did was thrown out the door because I didn't know that. So there's so many facets and assets you have to really know that I'm myself still learning even at this point. So what to do to be in this industry? There are so many different venues too. I've got modelers that do nothing but build 3D models. That's all they do. I have storyboard artists that are great with storyboards and are great with characters, but they also know 3D modeling and programs, so that sometimes I have to animate these characters or put them in a 3D setting in order to sell them in a fly-through. And they have that versatility, so compete with that. It's like the team that I have at iTech is just incredible in terms of diversity and talent. And it's a tricky field to get in, and quite honestly, every one of them probably started at the bottom and at the beginning and just stuck with it. Because once you're in, once you know somebody, that network is critical. It's really who you know. I hate to say it, it's who you know. And then the first positive review of the type of work you do can do wonders for your career. The first time they say, he's okay, but Now, another aspect of this industry that you have to understand are design managers. Their job is to execute the design based on what I decide the design is going to be. But they're in charge of the budget, the talent, and the hours. So a lot of times I'll have a piece of concept art and I'll have an artist, a storyboard artist come to me and goes, I'd really like to try my hand at concept art. And I said, well, that's great, but you got to put the pencil down, start learning to paint with larger strokes and get faster. And all I got was complaints about, well, you think I'm too slow? And I said, it's not that. The design manager has a certain amount of hours and a certain amount of money. We need 6 pieces of key art done. If we give it to Alex, he can knock them all out in 2 days. If we give it to Joe and he takes a week, he's going to blow my budget and my hours. So it doesn't matter how good you are, you also have to be efficient and effective, and you have to be aware of all these other things.